what they require for a decent life, as well as action by individual Robin Hoods, assisting the transfer of resources from the wealthy to those in need. Collective implementation involving appropriate institutions to guarantee that everyone has the resources for a decent life should be helped along by various forms of nonviolent action, such as protest marches, rallies, picketing, boycotts, strikes, civil disobedience, and sit-ins. Collective implementation should also be helped along by the nonviolent actions of organized groups of Robin Hoods, acting on behalf of existing needy people and on behalf of future generations. In this ways, our lives, both individually and collectively, would be guided by a deep egalitarianism that alone can be rationally and morally justified. Now, just suppose that the entire adult population of the world came to accept my argument and began to act in accord with it. What would happen? In general, we should expect the following. First, those who are currently working in occupations that provide a basic needs minimum for others would continue to do so. However, the income these workers currently derive from their work beyond what is required to secure that same basic needs minimum for themselves will be allocated in two ways. A, as taxes to democratically controlled government agencies that are now committed to simply providing the same basic needs minimum to all as needed. B, as investments and donations to organizations and corporations that are committed to producing and distributing the same minimum to all as needed. Second, those currently working to produce and distribute luxury goods should look for ways to transition out of such employment. Such changes of employment will be necessary in any case as demand for luxury goods decreases and an effective demand for goods that simply meet people's basic needs increases. In transition, workers still employed in luxury production would continue to allocate their income in just the same way as workers who are providing for a basic needs minimum. Third, those who are currently just managing their own investments and pensions will need to act in comparable ways. These are the Mitt Romneys of the world. They will need to redirect, if necessary, their investments and donations to support the provision of a basic needs minimum for all, pay their taxes to government agencies that are doing the same, and ensure that they are getting the same basic needs minimum themselves, but no more. No more elevators for the car. Given that all these individuals are, as we are supposing, committed to acting in accord with my rationality to equality argument, they should be able, in collaboration with those who are similarly committed, yet not similarly productive, to make use of the now transformed government agencies, markets, and other institutions to effectively realize their egalitarian goals with a minimum of coercion. Of course, circumstances are never likely to be so ideal with every adult committed to my argument. The point of this thought experiment, however, is simply to show that if such a commitment to equality obtained, an effective realization of that ideal is fairly easy to imagine. Let me end by simply summarizing my argument so far sketched. My argument has proceeded from a conception of rationality as non-question makings to an endorsement of morality over egoism and altruism. I then further argue that even a libertarian version of this conception of morality that I defend leads to a right to welfare. Lastly, I argue that extending this right to welfare, particularly to future generations, as I claim we must, leads to the egalitarian requirement that as far as possible we should use up no more resources than are necessary to meet our own basic needs, securing for ourselves a decent life but no more. I further showed how the egalitarian ethics I defend can be put in practice peacefully through a combination of individual and collective action. Thank you.
Jim, you can defend your own question.
Okay.
You've got 25 minutes for discussion.
So you're all in agreement now. Well, if you're not, there we go. Yes.
I question your the ability to achieve and inspiration, and the individual is to achieve must look out for themselves. And to look out for everyone else, why would you strive for more if there's no more to have? If I'm a brain surgeon, why should I give up more because the person who decided to end their education in high school go gets a blue collar job? Why do I give up so that they can have more? What's that achieve?
Well, there's two premises that are operative here. One is a premise about whether you're committed to morality or not. And then if you're not committed to morality, I'll have a backup position, whether you're committed to rationality. Now, the argument that, so you imagine the brain surgeon here is, imagine a brain surgeon committed to morality? Or is a brain surgeon say, well, look, I want to have a good life from being a brain surgeon. I don't care whether I have to do immoral things to have a good life. That's fine. I just want to be a brain surgeon and have a good life. And morality is not one of my interests. Is that your brain surgeon or not?
I don't think that's even possible. If somebody's going to be a brain surgeon, then they're in the business of saving lives and making better for others.
Well, look.
Just because they are gaining financially because of this. Does not make them
but
an
there
immoral person.
could be the issue. That person doesn't have to be completely immoral and to be a brain surgeon that's doing something immoral. The issue is whether someone who does something very productive is entitled to a large income as a result of that. And the problem that I see with the large income entitlement is that you give them the large income, that means that some other people who, through no fault of their own, can't have a decent life. And so I take that to be an objection to having the large income. So there's an immorality involved here in being a brain surgeon or any kind of productive activity and taking a large income, because that large income has an impact on other people who also are trying to do their best and have a decent life. And so if you grant that part of the moral argument, that we have to worry about whether our having a large income has an impact on others not having enough, and that affects the morality of our income, and if it affects it so seriously that we have to make transfers or others have a legitimate right to take them from us, then you're moving down my road. What are you?
I'm trying to be open-minded.
Okay, good. I love open-mindedness. But
I think America's the greatest country in the world, and I think we've developed through the individual, not through the collective. I think that.
But I take it that our belief in what we've done is a belief that what we've done is moral. If you want to say America has become great by becoming the most immoral nation in the world, I don't think that's the way we think about it. We think our greatness is compatible with being moral. And so we have to ask whether in some aspects of that greatness have to be, or some aspects of the way we live our lives have to be modified in order to be moral or not. That's an open question. I take it we want to be great and moral. And if you grant me that, now I'm telling you what happens when you having more, or someone like you having more, is at the expense of other people and a lot more. So that you're not just having a decent life, but you're having a life with decent and luxuries. And that you having the resources to provide, to have luxuries, keeps someone else from having enough for a decent life. What's the legitimacy? You have to give an argument to that other person that you are justified in having your luxuries when the other person, through no fault of their own, doesn't have enough for a decent life. If you don't have an argument to that effect, then there's a justification for a transfer of your resources to the other person, because they have an argument why the transfer should occur, as they have been doing all they can to take care of themselves and their loved ones, and they haven't had enough resources to make it possible. And your resources will make it possible, and so they feel justified in using those resources. And what is your counter argument? You worked hard? Well, they worked hard. That's
hard?
Let's imagine. Give us the case where they were. I'm not imagining that rich people here are immoral creeps. who've stolen from others. I'm putting on the rich side, they've been hard workers. They've been good people. They haven't, put knives in people's backs. They've been working hard, but I imagine then the poor, are working hard too. And in that context, I don't see why the argument of morality doesn't require the transfers.
Because a plumber does not deserve the same as a doctor.
Why not?
Well, if the plumber doesn't have a decent life, the way the income structure is set up, and the doctor has way more than a decent life. The plumber's working very hard, can't provide enough resources for his family. And the doctor, in the way the income thing is set up, and of course, the reason why doctors have a lot of money is a lot of things got set up in a certain way. If you go into Russia, doctors aren't paid very well in Russia.
We're not in Russia.
No, I'm just telling you, it's a structure. What happened in the United States is a limitation of medical schools, a whole bunch of things, limiting supply of doctors, certain kinds of licensing of them in a certain way to make doctors have good incomes. In Russia, there's another structure that allowed doctors to be mostly women who end up not having the structures that support them to have good incomes, even though they provide comparable services to doctors here in the United States. So there's a big background when you say, doctors, I'm a doctor and I make this money, and I'm a plumber and I make this money. There's a bunch of structural moves that have been made to make those incomes different. Now I'm asking you to sort of set those things a little bit aside, but realize it's not, inherent merit. You can have a system, as we had, maybe a system where people are delivered by midwives, where midwives didn't get paid very much at all. And you move delivery of children into hospitals, and then doctors get paid more. And they're usually, at the initial stage, male. So there's a bunch of things that happen here that, same services provided in one context, paid poorly, provide another context, paid well. So there's a lot of, there's no so much intrinsic merit in these things, but I'm allowing people being productive in various ways. Then I'm asking, what's the justification for somebody being productive and having a decent life and a lot more, and somebody else being productive and not having a decent life and doing their best at the skills that they have? And I'm saying there is no justification for that and you have to have the justification across the board. You can't, it has to be something you could tell the poor person. Here it is. You see, this is a good argument. This is why you stay where you are. Or you tell the rich person, look, here's the good argument, and you have to make some changes. But I think you get some support here, or maybe. Yeah, come on.
I had two questions. You keep using decent life and basic needs, and I was wondering if you could speak more to what you're considering those to be, and then also how do you handle individuals who aren't productive and are poor, and they're poor because they're unproductive. I have friends and cousins who literally...
What about rich people who are really not, just resting on their laurel or
I think they should give some money. I'm not talking...
Okay. Well, I mean, we have to, if they're going to have moral effects on one side, we have to moral effects on the other side.
I understand. I was just wondering, what do you do about, what would be your suggestion to do about, how about those individuals on both sides?
Yeah. Well, see, notice when you say, I have been using the term decent life, and I have been using the term basic needs. But remember, and I realize, and I did speak to some degree that, the difficulty of specifying what that is. On the other hand, I said, look, in a way, given my framework, it's not so much as difficult a problem as it is as we face currently. We say, what should be the welfare minimum? And so, a bunch of bureaucrats get together and figure out what the welfare minimum, because the bureaucrats don't live at the welfare minimum. But I said, look, this thing's going to be a lot easier to solve when we all get the decent minimum and no more. So I think at that point, what's going to happen is, it's going to be food requirements, housing requirements, educational requirements. It's going to be a nice, decent life. And that's it. We all get it. So I think it'd be a lot easier to meet that problem at that point. Now you say, well, what about the people who are cheaters and on all sides?
Yeah.
I mean, look, one of the things I thought was somewhat, particularly, let's talk about the poor being